when the time comes to slaughter them, I don't have to slaughter 50 chickens at once. I can go out and say, okay, I'll take, 5 or 6 today.
Yeah.
And then I'll get us down the road a couple months or 2 or 3 months or whatever. And then I can go out and do, 5 or 6 again. I don't have to do 50 at once because they won't get so big and unhealthy they can't live. And point being, I have a nice freezer that's big, but uh, what's the best way to store a chicken? Alive. That's the best way to store a chicken. You don't need to
Hmm.
freeze it, smoke it, or anything. Keep it alive, and it's good, right? Until you want to eat it. So,
This is the Farm Hop Life podcast, a traveling homestead family. I'm Matt DeRozier. Today, I have another Matthew joining me. We're going to have to fix that going forward. You're like the third one. Matthew Hamilton and his family have a small homestead in southwest Missouri. He's a full-time tradesman. He has pigs, chickens, geese, fruit, and veg trees. Veg trees? That's not right. I'll fix that later. No.
close enough.
How you doing?
Doing great, man. Feel good.
Good. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you for giving me your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've never done a podcast, so this will be the first one. So we'll see how it goes.
You'll do just fine. You'll do better than me, and I'm hosting, so we're all in for a ride.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
So, how did you get started homesteading?
I guess, man, maybe I started getting into gardening. It was maybe 10, 11 years ago. I had a house I was renting with a couple of friends, and it was just me and two buddies. We were all single, and I don't know really what it was at the time. I didn't have kind of a path in life yet, and so I was a line cook, and I was working in kitchens and doing this and that, bouncing around, just kind of being a bachelor. And I don't know what got into me. I think maybe I found this book. So John Seymour, and the book is The Self-Sufficient Life and How to Live It. And it's an illustrated book, the one I got. And it's got all kinds of drawings. There you can see them all over the internet if you look it up, right? Like the 5-acre farm, the 1-acre farm, and all of that. And it kind of gives you a primer on what it might mean to have a small farm. And I saw that, I was like, I just like would rather grow food and not work and just have food and then a house and then not have to work, and not
Yeah.
need money. So it was kind of like that was maybe a beginning point. So we borrowed a tiller from the neighbor and tilled the garden. By the way, in a terrible neighborhood, awful place, lots of crime, loud, old neighborhood, terrible drugs everywhere. But we had this cool place with it, buddies. Everyone was musicians. They played music. And I lived there, and I was kind of in a phase between, different points of my life. And so I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor. I didn't have a washer or dryer, so I washed all my clothes in the bathtub and I hung them outside on the line. And I found doing that I really only needed to have a very small amount of clothing because it's too much work to wash too many clothes.
That's true.
And then we put a little garden in and it did awesome. It was really fun.
Your little place is zen amongst all this craziness around you.
Exactly. And it was perfect. And then, my friends and everyone here in town, we had friends and they'd have parties over at the house. People come, oh, it's a beautiful garden. No, that's great. And I put a little tiny hoop house there with some plastic and PVC. Sorry.
No, it's no problem. I was wondering if the power at my place is going to go out too.
No, it's my wife tinkering with the power in here.
Oh,
But anyway, so it was fun, and we were able to do a lot of different things, and we had a lot of people there, and it was honestly fun to, it was before I met my wife, and we did have girls over there. Hey, look at my greenhouse over here. You want to come see my greenhouse? It's pretty cool. And that was kind of a thing because she got into that when uh, she came over, and that's kind of how we met.
it's not a bad pickup line.
It's not bad. No, it's not bad at all. And so that was maybe the very beginning, and then things progressed. We moved in together. We got a small place in the city, and we had a small yard. And I started there with a shovel, and I think maybe the entire backyard was like 8,000 square feet. And by the time I was done, it took a few years, but by the time I was done, the entire yard was turned over by a shovel. And then a little bit of gardening here and there. And then when COVID happened, we'd been planning to leave that place for a while. And that was a definite catalyst to leave town and get out into the country a little bit and get a little bit more land and where we could expand into animals. And so that's kind of where we are now. We've only been here, we haven't even been here 2 years. So that's the progress up until now.
Nice. That's a nice progression. Some people go crazy right away. Like I'm like they get spooked by something and or something happens and they just all of a sudden are all in. This is my new thing and nothing else matters. Just gonna grow food like from 0 to 100 starting today. And but that's a nice easy transition. So like you can make your mistakes as you go along and learn from 'em instead of make like everything be a mistake and not having time for everything. Like you got a system set up. Like that's makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense to do it that way.
Yeah, yeah, and you want to go 0 to 100,
Yeah,
and
you
then
do.
yeah, and then you try to, and it's even something we struggle with to this day, which is you want everything to be done right away, and it can't be. It's one step after another, and I talk about that on Twitter a lot. And yeah, you can't go. We have big plans. We walk around the property, we look at it. It's like, okay, we want to do this down the road. We can't do that now. And maybe even when we start to get discouraged about where we are at this point, it's like, hey, last year that was a pasture. Okay, this year we built something out of it. So it's come a long way in a year, but it's not where it's going to be down the road. So
Sure. What motivates you to grow your own food?
um, I think, yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit in the beginning. It was just kind of like, let's try this. This looks cool, and also like I said, it was kind of an idea of well, I don't really know where I want to go in life, but it would be really nice to just not have to be tied to a job and be able to grow as much as possible on my own and not have to depend on the money to purchase the food.
Right.
And so in these days, it's maybe the motivations changed a little bit. I think maybe we're on a little bit of a downward spiral. So you see people with a little bit more sense of urgency. Um, and I get people sending me questions often about, what do I do? How do I get started? And where do I begin? And so trying to find that pathway, um, I think now my motivation is more, how do I get as much self-sufficiency and closed loops here as
Mm-hmm.
possible. And I think that's a big motivation. You can't depend on being able to go to the store and buy everything you need anymore, like you could maybe 20 years ago. Now, and everyone saw maybe to more or less extent during COVID, uh, where you go to the store and there's nothing there. And
Mm-hmm.
I distinctly remember. I mean, we'd been saving back food for a while, but not crazy, but just a reasonable amount up until that point. And my wife always kind of thought I was a little bit crazy about that. And then when the COVID lockdown started happening across the country, we ended up, you know, where I'm in Missouri. We were some of the last ones, but still, when that happened, it happened suddenly. And when it happened suddenly, it was like, oh, maybe I don't know, you were right. I'm glad, we should have done that. Maybe we should have done more. And it all came kind of all at once.
Right.
And I remember distinctly going to the grocery store for chicken a few weeks later or whatever, however long later. And make the grocery list, and you put different things, and we put maybe chicken, right? Didn't know what would be there, but we wanted some chicken. You go to the store and you go to the chicken section of the meat section. There's no chicken.
None.
There were leg quarters. There were 2 bags of chicken leg quarters frozen. That's all there was, nothing else. So I said, I guess we're buying chicken leg quarters today. That's it. And that's how it was. And people forget very quickly that that's how life was. And honestly, I mean, it's such a fragile system that could happen anytime, and you can't depend on it being there. So that's a big motivation.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Like, even providing food for your chickens, for your pigs, whatever, part of your closed loop system, I'm assuming you're trying to work on, being able to provide almost all of that feed on your own place, or at least not having to go to the store for it. So,
Yeah, that's definitely a long-term goal. I think so. Pigs and chickens are very high input animals. Our chickens free range, and that helps a lot. But we still feed them. Um, and so I would ideally, it would be, you just let the chickens free range all day and eat all their food they want, right?
right.
And get their sustenance that way. And honestly, they might do that, but they're so used to me feeding them at this point. If they run out of feed, when I come home and I drive home up the driveway, and then they all come, they follow you everywhere. They follow me everywhere I go until I feed them. So we're not at the point where we can do that yet. And then pigs, I'm new to pigs. This is the second year I've had pigs. Um, and this year we've done a little different. The first year we had them in a little bit of overgrown uh, plowed fields. So uh, last year was our first summer on this property, and I didn't have a garden. So we had a friend come and plow the field. Well, I was only able to get about half of the field tilled and planted or whatever. The other half of it was just plow lines, and that became overgrown with grass, which I couldn't mow because it was so rough. You couldn't take a mower over it. So I had 5 foot tall grass out there and weeds and whatever. And we put our pigs out on that field. And we just two gilts, and let them go to town on it. And I was highly impressed. First time I ever had pigs. had a friend who's a pig farmer. He raises and breeds pigs. And he kind of twisted my arm into getting the pigs. I didn't really want pigs, you know. He's like, "Oh, get some pigs." I got some pigs from him, put them on that field, and they just tore it all the way down, took it to mud, took it all the grass. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, it was when I first put them out there, it was 5 foot tall grass. You could barely see the pigs. By it was maybe early fall when I put them out there. By December, it was just mud, you know. And so highly impressed with pigs. And but that was the first year with that, and we still fed them conventionally. It was the first year I bought bags of pig feed at the store. This year we started with piglets, and I put them in a little pen next to the barn to begin with. Gave them pig feed and corn directly off of weaning. And then after maybe a month and a half on pig feed and corn, they went into the forest. I set up an electric fence in the forest, and that's where they went. And to be honest with you, they eat way less in the forest. They dig for roots and forbs and whatever. They eat a
Sure.
lot of their diet comes from the forest. I think going forward, that might be a better plan, um, to keep them in the woods. But uh, but I think my future focus might be on more like ruminant animals, because pigs, chickens, they require a lot of input. But like you said, closed loops. I don't want to need to buy feed off a farm. I want to be able to grow animals and get them fat and happy off of what I have here. And so that's why this year we're going to actually introduce sheep in the farm,
Oh, nice.
and yeah, and try to grow sheep, which is, I mean, my kids love lamb, and which is surprising. They're very picky, and lamb, a lot of people, Americans especially, talk to them about putting sheep out here. Okay, that's awesome. What do you want sheep for? It's like, well,
To
meat,
eat
obviously.
them.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
delicious. Oh yeah, yeah, lamb. Yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds good. But sheep, and we recently got some geese, and I'm a big fan of the geese too. And they'll just eat grass, which grows for free.
Yeah.
So it's a huge motivation to try to transition that way, where I can raise animals here for free. So
Do you have a breed of sheep picked out that you're going to get?
yes, we have a friend nearby who she raises Jacob sheep, and Jacob sheep are an interesting breed. If everything I've heard about them, and my experience with hers, they're really kind of wild sheep. They
Oh,
they're
weird.
Yeah, they're a piebald coat, so it's white with black spots, and they grow 4 to 6 horns. Okay, and people describe them as being like almost a goat. They're just kind of wild. They're considered an unimproved breed.
They do have very goat-like horns. This is wild. I've never heard of this breed before. This is crazy.
Well, the main reason why I think they would be a good fit for us is they're kind of a little bit wild, and so they say that veterinary care is almost completely unnecessary. They don't have the same kind of foot or parasite issues that your more domesticated sheep have.
Right.
And they forage well, and they almost always twin, and they never need trouble help with lambing.
Oh, nice.
And so it's a sheep that, I mean, I've eaten Jacob sheep from her farm, and it tastes great. I mean, it's just as good. But the meat it's considered a dual purpose sheep, because the meat is excellent and the wool is excellent.
Hmm.
I we will likely won't use the wool, at least for any short-term period of time. But the meat, yes. And it honestly, we this property that we bought was neglected for decades. So we have a lot of brush and a lot of trees to clear. And so I think it might be maybe the ideal animal for our application here, to try to clear some of this out. Uh, and I don't know. I mean, they're kind of ugly, but
I don't think
I don't know. They're
so. The
kind of
first
cool.
picture almost looked like a little cow, to be honest with you. I'm like, is that a cow with horn, like sheep horns, or like a little? I don't know. It was just they're goofy looking. It'd be kind
Yeah,
of, I
they
don't know,
are.
put a smile on your face if you saw them out on your property. Like, there's my, I don't know, woolly cows, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, wheat cows. Well, they're just in on paper. You go, okay, that sounds like a good sheep. But in any case, she has Jacob sheep, and her neighbor is a breeder, and they're maybe 20 minutes down the road. So it just makes perfect sense. Okay, let's get some and try it out, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe branch off. I'm buddies with Michael Thomas of Sharon on Twitter,
Okay.
and in any case, he's a orchard guy, and he keeps Katahdin sheep and like hair sheep, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the main difference being that a hair sheep will shed naturally without needing to be sheared, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, the meat is supposed to taste better because being a hair sheep, they don't have as high of a concentration of lanolin in their
Mm-hmm.
wool, which might give it that kind of mutton flavor.
Right.
Uh, but a tame sheep like that, I might need to have tamer pasture before I can put a tame sheep like that out here. So we'll get there down the road. He swears by the hair sheep, and so I'm intrigued anyway in either way. So I think they're a beautiful animal.
Yeah, they're cool. I had looked at getting Soa sheep and found a breeder near me, and bought some, uh like bought one, sent it to the processor. My wife loved it, and she was very hesitant to try it. She didn't, before meeting me, she did not eat meat like at all. Maybe like chicken now and then, but like,
Sure.
like our first camping trip together, all I brought was steak because she didn't tell me she was vegetarian. So that broke that pretty quick. But anyways, yeah, she loved the mild flavor of the Soe, which is a hair sheep. Because if I was to get it, I don't want to shear it. And the there I looked in, you talked about hoof rot, similar thing here. Parasites, same thing here. Easy lambing. Um, with
I've heard of
wool
that breed.
sheep, yeah, they're cool looking. They're kind of like, I think they're from Scotland. That breed
Oh,
is.
sheep.
What's that?
Well, that's got to be my sheep. I'm Scottish, obviously.
They're
I'll
cool.
look into them.
Yeah, they're cool. And it has the mild flavor, and yeah, because with the wool, it can trap moisture. Like, I know it's supposed to like wick moisture or whatever, but it can trap moisture and like
Okay.
cause like a couple of different like parasite issues. It can, but if this particular breed is a little bit more wild, like you're saying, it's possible that they'd be totally fine. Like if your neighbors don't have the problems of typical sheep, then I don't know why 20 minutes down the road would really make that much of a difference. So,
No, it really wouldn't. And this area of the country, where I am, I'm in southwest Missouri, and this area of the country was traditionally sheep and poultry. Like, let's say the 1800s, it was sheep and poultry. It's a very I don't want to say mountainous, but it's a very hilly region, um, which is why the term Ozarks it came to be. Uh, and I don't know how you say it in French, but au arcs, right? With hills. So
Mm,
yeah, it's a hilly region, and I think people it makes sense. People said, "Oh, this would be a great area to keep sheep," right? And
sure.
so it makes sense. But nowadays, it's mostly cattle. That's mostly what we have: cattle and commodity crops. So
What kind of tell me a little bit about your geese. I thought about getting geese, like especially like the Toulouse geese, because they're supposed to be like
mm,
fantastic cooking. But then I read that they're crazy noisy, and I was like, I don't even have
mm.
a rooster for all my hens. I don't even have any roosters because I was like, we can keep it down.
How many chickens do you have?
16.
Okay, you need a rooster.
Do I? Why?
Yeah, they're not that bad. The hens like it a lot. The hens appreciate it a lot. Um, they just seem to be happier. Uh, this might be maybe even the only the third or fourth year we've had chickens. We started with them in town. We've only been here not even 2 years. So, I mean, really, I mean, we started with a handful of chickens, and and when we did, it was just hens. And then we got a rooster from a friend while we were still in town and weren't allowed to have roosters, but we did anyway, and no one complained. And in any case, he was very loud, but the hens seemed to appreciate it a lot. And then the big deal is being able to have the closed loop. So with the rooster, we have an incubator now, and we can incubate chicks. So we've raised this year. It was the first year we did a full run through the incubator of eggs, and my incubator is small. It holds maximum 21 eggs. Um, but when I loaded it this year, I didn't check any eggs. I wasn't very cautious about it. I just went and got 21 eggs out of the hen house and put them in the incubator. And of that 21, I got 10 chicks hatched.
Mm.
And so, in any case, having the incubator gives, and the rooster gives you the opportunity to be able to hatch your own chicks. And then the goal, I guess, with poultry, that's a whole other issue we can go into detail with. But last year, I raised Cornish cross chickens for meat, and we did roughly 50 chickens for meat. And the thing with Cornish cross is they grow so fast, they get so fat, and they need to be slaughtered all at once.
Yep.
You can't just let them live their life and get to it when you want to. When the time comes, they have to go. And
Yeah, I raised them last year too, and
yeah,
they're just stupid huge. Like some
they're
trying to get in and out of the chicken door. Sometimes they'd have to like go sideways to like get in. I'm surprised they even figured that out.
they're so dumb. I mean, chickens are dumb anyway, but Cornish cross are just the dumbest creatures on earth. Like, I mean,
You feel
I
bad for them though, because they got all like these health problems, which is kind of weird that we raise them just to eat them. With if they got like health problems, like splayed leg and all this junk, and
yeah, it's sad, and I even had. I mean, I think it was like three or four. I even had just drowned themselves in their own water. Just died, just drowning, drinking water. Uh, but I mean, they taste great. They taste fine. And we kind of did like a Salatin, like a Joel Salatin style chicken tractor
mm-hmm.
uh, in the back pasture. And I wasn't impressed with that method. For us here on a small farm, and we're only raising chickens for ourselves, it's like, man, you got to go out there every day. You got to move the pen every day, or every other day or whatever, but you got to move it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, they're those chickens compared to our egg layers, they're dirty. They're just disgusting.
Oh yeah, they're just constantly eating, constantly pooping, just
Yeah, yeah.
messy, messy. Yeah.
So this year I said, okay, I want to do something a little different, and we we got 20 dual purpose chickens, and we got 25 of the Red Ranger
Are
meat.
those the ones that do dark meat? Or the
I,
Red Rangers only dark meat chickens? Is that
I don't I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so. They're just a different breed of broiler chicken,
okay?
and they take a few weeks longer than the Cornish, and they're a little bit. I don't want to say more wild, but they're a little bit where you can let them live a couple years. They're not going to get too fat to walk and live. They're not going to die. They'll live and lay eggs and all of that. They're just heavy chickens, and they've been bred to be that way. But Cornish cross are basically pure meat chickens. You don't want them to. I'm sure you don't want them to get to a certain age and then they're just too fat to walk. They're worthless. And then the other deal is we've let them run with our egg layers free range. So
Yeah.
instead of keeping them in the pens and moving them, forget that. They just go live in the hen house and run around with the other chickens. And the point of that is uh, a couple things. Number one, um, likely I can collect eggs from those and incubate them. Number two, they have probably a better life than the Cornish did in their pens. Number three, when the time comes to slaughter them, I don't have to slaughter 50 chickens at once. I can go out and say, okay, I'll take 5 or 6 today,
Yeah.
and then I'll get us down the road a couple months or 2 or 3 months or whatever, and then I can go out and do 5 or 6 again. I don't have to do 50 at once because they won't get so big and unhealthy they can't live. And point being, I have a nice freezer that's big, but uh, what's the best way to store a chicken? Alive. That's the best way to store a chicken. You don't need to
Hmm.
freeze it, smoke it, or anything. Keep it alive, and it's good, right? Until you want to eat it. So um, I think it's all part of that loop. Now, and I mentioned the dual purpose chickens. The point with that is the dual purpose chickens are like a heritage breed meat chicken. Um, you'll get plenty of eggs up until the point where they're ready for slaughter. And so they're a much more adaptable chicken. And I think the point with that is to incubate those and maybe I'm going to experiment with some crossbreeding there and see if we can't, see what works best. But try to get a chicken that will be a good layer and a good meat bird, right? And then go that way down the road because I don't want to be dealing with. I don't want to buy chicks from the hatchery. You it's cool when you start because you get all these exotic chickens. They look cool
Hmm.
and they lay cool eggs and all that. But having to buy from a hatchery means depending on someone else far away to send you chickens. I don't want to
And
do
we
that.
all know how that went over the last 2 years, and it's probably still happening.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
we
then
all know.
no, and this year too. I mean, with the quote unquote bird flu that's going on,
Yeah.
what is it, 30 million chickens, or I don't know how many it is. It's crazy how many
Oh yeah.
they put down because they claim they're sick. And no, I get it. It's like a handful of birds and your flock goes down, and you have to kill the whole flock and on and on. But not here. I mean, I haven't lost one chicken this year. There's no there's no bird flu out here. You know, so I don't know. I just know part of closing that loop is I want to raise my own chickens and I want to not have to buy any anymore. And then maybe eventually mixing them all together, I'll get like a good chicken that can lay eggs, fend for itself, and be fat enough to eat.
Yeah.
So
Sure, that makes sense. What talking a little bit about like your systems on your homestead, what have you tried that's worked well? Planting a couple things together, does like a specific vegetable or fruit on your property do better than some that don't, or anything like that?
Uh, Honestly, I think, I mean, I've tried just about anything and everything. But I think maybe what I would recommend to be what works well, I like raspberries. I like fruit bushes, um, because very little work for a very high value crop, and you you don't have to plant every year, and they just seem to do well in my climate, maybe. Um, but that's a big thing for me. Uh, at our old place, we started with 5 raspberry bushes, and it it was an unbelievable amount of fruit and a lot of work just picking, you know. But
Yeah.
how nice is that? You just go out and pick berries. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know what else to say on that issue. Trial and error, and I mean, it's probably it's all context, where you live, your climate, your soil. Um,
Right.
berries seem to do really well here. Uh, Raspberries especially. Uh, so good. I mean, what you buy at the store, it's okay, you know. Even the organic stuff, it's good, but it's just like strawberries too. Strawberries, we get good strawberries here, and you absolutely cannot get a ripe strawberry unless you grow it yourself. The ones you buy, you know, they're not ripe when they're picked, and they're ripe
Mm-mm.
artificially, and it's right on the edge there where you can get a perfect strawberry, and maybe if you pick that perfect strawberry and you didn't eat it, you know, 2 days later it's too ripe, it's just gone, you know.
Hmm.
You really can't get that unless you do it yourself. So
Right.
I think, yeah, berries do really well in this soil. We have uh, kind of a heavy clay here, for the most part, but I want to call it like a good clay. And I don't know if that's not really like a scientific term, but you have your clay that's very much mostly clay. Ours is clay, which is dark, and with very little bit of compost becomes the best soil. So I think berries, I don't know. It's just berries. Do berries.
Do you make anything with them, like meat or wine or jam or freeze dry it?
We do jam. I've tried uh, dehydrating the berries. I'm not a huge fan of the dehydrated berries. Not great. The jam is great, and then we freeze them and use them later on. I haven't tried to make any sort of wine or anything out of them. I'm not opposed to it. Um, but I think maybe our focus down the road is going to go to trees, fruit trees, um, and trying to do that and use maybe apples for cider and things like that. In
That'd
terms
be
of,
awesome.
oh yeah, I think so. We have an orchard, where I am in Missouri is also a pretty decent orchard area. We have a pretty large orchard, about 4 miles down the road. Apples mostly, and then other fruits, but uh, they have peaches, and then basically a pretty popular spot for people to come from the city and get food. So I think here where we are, our farm used to be an orchard and an asparagus farm. I think, a long time ago, they dug most of the rocks out of the soil and planted a lot of fruit trees. And I think we want to put it back to a lot of fruit trees. I think it'd be a good plan for this area.
What's been the biggest challenge in homesteading that you faced?
Uh, I would say trying to learn everything without having been brought up with it, right? Because we
Sure.
we had a few generations there where people went from being connected to the land and growing, and then now uh, removed and having to relearn all of these things, and a lot of it from books and on the internet, compared to just growing up in it.
Right.
That's been a big one. Um, and then just it's expensive now. I used to be able to do this kind of thing uh, for almost nothing, but now it's
Right.
it's kind of a boutique thing. Oh, you're a homestead, so you have to nursery tree. If you want to buy a nursery tree, spend a fortune on it.
Oh yeah.
And people used to graft and do all of that on their own. Um, so time, money, all of it. I mean, and balancing that with a full-time career where you're not, this isn't my job, it's just a thing I do for fun. And I'm by no means an expert. It's all, I mean, I'm still new to all of this, and maybe have some useful insights for people who are just, don't know where they're starting, for sure. But I'm not like the expert or anything on it. It's all new to me. Uh, and maybe, even a lifetime. I don't know if a lifetime would be enough to even be considered an expert on it, right? Because maybe it takes generations. I don't know.
Yeah, could be. I mean, there could be like climate shifts, like if you have like a certain weird like weather event, a certain weird year, or goes like spans multiple years, where if you were like originally like zone 7, maybe it drops to like zone 5. That's
Sure,
possible. And all of a sudden, whoa, like none of my stuff's surviving, or like heavy pest year, something. I mean, Mother Nature is always going to throw you a curveball when you think you got it figured out. So
sure. We've had a couple pretty bad drought years, and then this year we've had just more rain than you could imagine. Uh, my garden's been just a pond. I mean, and now we had a few dry days. We had about a week of dry days, and I got some work done. And now they're forecasting another whole week of rain. So
jeez.
we just have to deal with it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a crazy year for rain, and our water table is pretty high where I am. So when we do have rain, I mean, as wet as it's been, when we get rain, there's puddles everywhere. I mean, in grass everywhere. I mean,
The
it's
ground's
hard
already
to,
saturated that it can't absorb anymore.
yeah, it can't go anywhere. So it's bad. But yeah, weather's always a setback, and just time, right? If I had all the time in the world to be here, maybe it'd be a lot better. But
Sure.
yeah, it's always a balance there, trying to find, and having a family too with kids. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
spend time with the kids. You can't spend all your time in the garden. So it's always a balance, and I think we find a good balance there, um, involving the kids as much as they will tolerate it, and then growing enough. I'm not so obsessed with having like a Better Homes and Gardens looking, magazine, vegetable garden. It just has to produce food, right?
Right.
And I don't want to let weeds go to seed, and that's about it. It can do what it wants to do. So this year, more than any, I think. we've focused on long-term storage crops and calories. Years past, I tried to do all different types of things, uh, partially for the experience, and also we enjoy it, right? Like nice romaine lettuces and butter head lettuces and all things like that. This year, it's like I'm growing potatoes and you know I'm growing things I know I can keep and do well, because who knows, right? This year, this fall, it's going to be a unique year, uh, with the war going on, Russia, Ukraine. That's I read, and it may not be true, but that's 20% of the world's calories, right? Coming out of that part of the world.
Hmm.
So, okay, may not directly affect us because we may not be buying that food, but whoever is, and then it just ripples across the, it ripples everywhere.
Right.
So when you have that going on, it's like, and then fertilizer coming out of that area of the world too. So, uh, yeah, now more than ever is a good time to learn how to grow calories in your garden, and potatoes, corn, things you can store, winter squash, pumpkins, things like that that'll keep for months at room temperature. Yeah, that's
Right.
good stuff to keep.
Yeah. What's the best part about homesteading?
Oh, all of it's great.
All of
Having
it's
the
great.
Yeah, all of it's great. Having the food there, where you just go out and pick something, and you have food for dinner. When we eat a full meal at the table, uh, minus maybe a couple minor things, but it's like, okay, well, these potatoes came from here, this kale, this whatever salad, the chicken, all of this, right, came from right here. That's really nice. Makes you feel pretty accomplished.
Does being a tradesman make you a better homesteader?
I think it does. Um, you maybe just maybe not homestead on the property. There's all kinds of things need done, and um, whether it's machines, what what I do, um, HVAC mechanic. So, but more or less a mechanical trade, right? So
Yeah.
I work with machines, I fix machines, and understanding electricity and understanding mechanics, um, goes a long way. Uh, Welding, all of those things. If you have any sort of property, I mean, you have to be able to work with metal and fasteners and all of that stuff, right? And so it helps doing that, and uh, with what I do, mainly being service work, you're solving problems, and sometimes you're solving them in a kind of like MacGyver way.
Right.
So you may not have everything you need, especially nowadays. Parts or materials, you might be out, 20 weeks lead time on something, right? So you got to make it work now, right? And
Right.
that's kind of maybe the most useful thing, is finding ways to make things work. I've repaired, oh, man, like, up until now, when we lived in town, I had a push mower. Okay, a small yard, we could make that work. When we first moved out here, I bought a really cheap mower from a neighbor, like just a lawn tractor, and that was a piece of crap, and it was breaking all the time. I swear, every time I mowed, it broke. And it's like, okay, new nuts and bolts. Oh, I don't have that. No, I got to finish tonight. I'm not going to town to buy nuts and bolts. I'll just use baling wire. I don't know. I'll figure out a way to make it work. And you do, and you have to. And of course, that's just cussing machines, but just finding different ways to make what you have work, and I think that translates both ways in the trades and even here. Um, it's important to be able to solve problems creatively. So I think that goes both ways.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. That there's there's always going to be problems you encounter in your garden or with your animals or whatever the situation that needs troubleshooting. And you know, doing service work, you're constantly troubleshooting. Like literally, that's your job, is to troubleshoot, and so you are constantly exercising that part of your, like, your brain. Okay, what's the problem? What's the solution? Could it be a different problem that would
Sure.
require a different solution? Or, and then, just so yeah, it's just, I think that's a great answer.
Well, yeah, and can I fix it with what I have here? Or do I need to go somewhere? Do I need to
Right.
go 30 miles out of the way to get what I
Yeah, now
need?
that I have a solution, do I have what I need to implement it, or do I need to come up with a roughly different plan, like, to make it work with what I have here? Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah, that goes a long way, and then knowing people who know different things. Like, um, with what I do, I can do electrical work, and I'm not licensed in any way, shape, or form. But
I won't tell anybody.
I have friends, like, so I have a friend I mentioned earlier who is a pig farmer, and he breeds pigs and raises pigs and sells them. And well, he's needed work from me before, so I've gone and done things for him. And then having that skill is a valuable skill that you can trade for what you might need. So, like with him, I don't think we've ever exchanged cash between each other because he might need something done. I go take care of that, and then it's like, well, okay, what do you want? Well, I want, I want two pigs or whatever it is, right? You
Hmm.
trade one thing for another. I think I traded for laying hens once. And so it's like, yeah, give me some hens. What do you have? And so that comes in handy. And then being able to barter skill uh, for goods is way better than currency.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
because everyone feels like they got the better end of the deal. Um, and maybe someone gets the worse end one time, right? So but then you have like that sort of that feeling that maybe I owe him something a little bit, right? Because he did
Hmm.
this and I just gave him that for it, and that's not enough, so maybe I need to do this next time around. But you trade back and forth, and uh, we've if we had to put a dollar value on it, I have no idea where we would be. But I feel happier not doing the dollar amounts because I feel like I got a better end of the deal, and I think maybe he does too.
Sure.
So the trades skills come in handy that way, and it's not even been that kind of thing. I mean, I borrowed a chicken plucker from someone once and put a motor on it that had failed in exchange for borrowing it. Okay, so it was useful to them to have a new motor attached to their plucker, and
Hmm.
it was useful for me to be able to use it. And I don't know who won in that exchange. I think we both won. You know,
Yeah, because plucking chickens by hand sucks.
yeah. Oh, it's the worst.
It's pretty bad.
It's about 3 times or 4 times as fast from my experience using the plucker.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so
There's a
uh,
guy in Wisconsin that holds the world record for plucking chickens the fastest, and he can do it. He can pluck a chicken in like 4.4 seconds or something.
I don't believe that.
I think so. I think he I I think, I mean, if that's your job, right, you got to get good at it. I think what
Yeah.
he gets the scald like to the exact temperature and the dunk at a very specific time. So like all those feathers, he's like, you should be able to just like wipe your hand, like wiping water off a table. That's how
Okay.
easy the feathers should come out.
I've not gone that
No,
deep
I have
into
not
it.
got that precise either, but it sounds nice, doesn't it? Then it wouldn't be
That
that
sounds
bad.
good. 4 seconds would be great. Yeah, I
That would
do.
be great.
I do 30 seconds. That'd be fine too.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. When you do your chicken plucker, is it a big drum or is it the one that like you gotta hold? It's like handheld.
The one that I used was a drum, and it was a homemade plucker. So
Oh,
it's a 55-gallon drum and an old washing machine. Uh, basic like what I want to say, the frame, like the hardware from it, in the bottom of the drum, and then um, a pulley on the bottom of that attached to a motor with a belt, and then just a bunch of those little rubber fingers that go inside.
right.
And it was just a DIY rig with like a plywood frame, so you could move it on a dolly easily and plug it in. And he even rigged it up to have a water rush in from the edges of the drum with some PEX pipe. So you could turn on water to it and then put the chicken in and then hit the switch, let it run, and it would do its thing. Probably really similar to what you might buy in like a commercial stainless plucker,
Right.
but he just made it himself. If I were to do it and buy, if I wanted a plucker, I would honestly buy one. I would spend the money on it. Um, because his was great, but being homemade, it would occasionally, if you put a couple chickens in there, I would do two at a time in it. They would occasionally have a wing or a leg get caught in the very edge,
Hmm.
and then they would get stuck, and then you'd have to
Snap.
they'd break their leg or their arm or whatever in the drum,
Hmm.
and that was not ideal, right? And I think maybe a more uh, commercially made one would work better.
Sure.
Uh, but it's either that or doing it by hand. I don't know if I'd even spend the time to do a homemade one unless I don't know. But uh, by hand won't ever break. Let's put it that way. If you can learn how to do it by hand well, that's not going to break like a machine would. So
Sure.
that's your best bet. It's something I say all the time. I'm a bit of a luddite when it comes to machines. So um, I do heating and air work
Mm-hmm.
for a job, but I tell people all the time, you absolutely need wood backup for heat. I mean, you have to have a wood stove or a fireplace or some kind of way to burn wood as a backup for heat, because it will never break. I have a wood stove. It wasn't expensive. I put it here. It could sit. I could die. My house could sit empty for 200 years. Someone could walk in here, put wood in there, light it, and it would heat the house. It won't break as long as you have wood. You're good. You know, and things like that are not fragile systems. You become an excellent plucker like that guy with 4 seconds. You're going to be fine. A machine is always going to break. Doesn't matter how well you maintain it. Over time, it's going to break. So finding that kind of balance, I think, for now, while these things exist, I'm going to use what I can while learning to use the non-mechanical way of doing it. and then when the time comes, maybe when I can't rely on a machine or a part or a supply chain or anything, then we'll be okay.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense because there's gonna come a time where it's not gonna work, and it's gonna be when you need it most. You better know how to do it if you need it that second. Better know how to do it without. So,
Yeah.
um, wrapping up here, what would you tell people that want to get started? You said at the beginning that a lot of people come to you and ask you, like, how do I get started? Um, what that's by the way, that's awesome that people come to you that they're wanting to get started. That's super encouraging that more people want to get into it. What do you tell them?
Uh, well, since I started with gardening, I usually recommend start with a garden plot. Um, and I'm a big fan of John Seymour, like I mentioned originally. So uh, his his books, uh, I have a few, maybe not the best technical book for how to learn how to do things, but very inspirational. Okay, uh, they look good. They make you excited about wanting to do it. Um, I usually say start with a small vegetable garden, maybe 10 by 10 or 20 by 20, just to figure it out and just grow things that are easy and things that you like, uh, and and pay attention. Just pay really close attention to how it's doing, what it's doing. Keep your eye on it every day. Water, pay attention, and that's a number one. And number two, in terms of animals, chickens. They're the vegetables of the animal world. They don't like you. They don't care about you. They're afraid. They run away from you. You don't have to really pay attention to them. As long as they have food and water, they're fine. So you can walk away from them. If you have a small yard in most small towns, cities, most whatever, you can have a handful of chickens in the city limit. So it's protein. Okay, so that's even if you're out in the country and you are on some land, chickens. Start with chickens. It's protein every day. Eggs,
Mm-hmm.
perfect protein. And you can kind of get in the habit of caring for livestock. And since chickens don't give a shit about you, uh, then I have an affection towards chickens, but also I can detach myself from that, right? Because they don't like you. It's not like a dog or like even certain livestock, like a goat or something that like they like you. They're like dogs. They like come to you. They look at you. They want to be interacted with. Chickens don't care about you, so it's a good animal to start with, and it's protein. It's daily protein, and worst case, if you absolutely had to, you could eat your chickens, your egg
Mm-hmm.
layers, in the worst case scenario. So that's a very good start there. A small garden, um, man, like what everybody like what every boomer grows, like tomatoes and some peppers and a simple basic garden vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, will teach you a ton, and that all of that is a good place to start, but it's also a way to learn what you like and what you don't like, uh, and so paying attention to what vegetables do well, which ones you don't like to grow. I mean, which ones didn't work out well for you. It's all a good beginning step, and then from there, it's the same thing with, like, people have asked me as well. How do I get started in the trades? Well, you pick a project that you would like to accomplish. Then I don't know, go like Google it. Like, how do I drywall, right? Or just something, right? Very
Right.
basic. Look it up, watch videos for half an hour, figure out what tools and materials you might need to buy, and just do it. You learn so much from doing it that that's all I can tell you to do. Just do it, and then come back. If you got more questions, come back later. Just get started doing something, and you'll learn from it.
Yeah. A lot of people like read too much before they get started. Like I talked to somebody and they said that they read about how to keep chickens for a year and a half before they bought a chicken. And she's like, I wish I just got the chicken first and like learned as I went. But I don't think that was her personality type to just jump into something and then like learn about it like as you go. But even she would say, I wish I had just jumped into it and learned as I went instead of trying to consume as much as I could about like chickens before. Like you're going to learn way more as you go, like the actual experience instead of, reading all these books. So,
Yeah, yeah, and you'll enjoy it in the process more than
oh yeah.
absorbing the knowledge from the books. And I found too, I'm a lot of animals like, well, from having kept chickens and then from looking at things online about chickens, I've had a couple chickens get sick with some kind of, I don't even know to this day what it is, but it's something that makes one side of their head like an eye or like a nasal, like a swell really badly. They
Mm,
get sick, they quit eating, they lose weight, and then they either die or I put them down. I've had that happen a handful of times in the last couple years.
that's so weird.
It is weird. I don't know what it is. I've tried to nurse them back. I actually nursed one back, isolated isolated the chicken, and it got better. But in any case, if you having kept them for a while, then looking at things online about it, I mean, it's so much geared towards like a homeowner with like a pet. Okay, so they'll tell you all of these things. It might be wrong, and we'll go to a vet and get these medicines and on and on. And some of that is useful, but that's not where I'm trying to go with it. And so recently, when we got geese, I was trying to look up some and asking people on Twitter and all of that, some basic things about geese. If you look up information on the internet, you're going to get some like kind of boutique, like uh, blog, uh, fancy, like pet geared information. You're
Because
not
they
going to
hit
get.
all the right keywords in Google. They know how to
Yeah.
manipulate the Google search results so that theirs is on the first page, and that's why that shows up. Yeah.
Well, that might be it, and it might also be like a that's what most people want is that's they want to dote over their geese like they would over a dog or whatever, where it's like, well, you need to have you need to have your dog to the vet every month and get your heartworm medicine and on and on. Whereas I want a goose who is like, well, what's your bare minimum to be happy? Okay, where you're going to be happy on the bare minimum, and then I want you to be happy and healthy, but I'm not going to be uh like all of the little details that they want. I mean, you can see it with chickens more than geese because chickens are more common. Well, they need a dust bath, build a little dust bath and like Pinterest type, you know,
Hmm.
oh, I made this really cool playground for my chickens, and all of it's interesting, but it's so unnecessary. They're wild animals. If they have access to the woods and a bunch of open grass, they're going to be happy. They'll
Sure.
find they'll find places to dust bathe and on and on. And so uh
Yeah, guess what? They scratch, and they scratch a lot. They will dig holes in like the toughest dirt that I have,
oh
and
yeah.
just like fluff themselves up, get their dust bath, and they'll. I got like potholes all over the chicken run, just for them doing that. And it's like I kind of wish you wouldn't do that, but I'm also not going to stop you either. So
Mine do the same. They do it in the gravel driveway, and then I know I got
that's
this whole
annoying.
it's so weird. And then the only time it really bothered, so I have the entire vegetable garden fenced off from chickens at this point. So they can't get
Sure.
in there. But we have a little herb garden right up by the back door, and they'll get in there, they'll scratch it up. You have to put transplants in there. You can't try to direct seed anything. I mean, it's just
Sure.
gone, you know. But so much of that knowledge, like we were talking about, is you learn from experience. So if you try to absorb information from books or online or books, even, uh, you're going to get a bunch of kind of boutique kind of um, cutesy type of knowledge about chickens or geese or
Yeah.
cattle or whatever. The real knowledge comes from keeping the animal, paying attention. Is the animal happy? Do they like this, or do they not? And and going from there. And then the other thing is just trying to find people who have more experience than you that you can depend on to ask questions. Hey, I had with so I'll try to keep it brief, but with the pigs, I had pigs for the first time last year. Never done it before, and I've mentioned my friend who's a pig farmer, and I had the pigs get out one day through the electric fence. The charger went out, and so they got loose. And I'm like, hey, do pigs come back if they get out? Do they get hungry? Do they come back home, or what
That's
do I
funny.
do? And he's like, probably not, dude. Like, okay. Like, well, I got to go get these pigs.
Oh man.
And I spent 3-4 hours on a Saturday morning chasing pigs through the woods. And, I got one back, and then the other one, I couldn't find her. I looked forever, couldn't find her. I was so bummed out. I came home, and she was in a pen right by the barn. She like found her way into the barn, into a little pen, and was sleeping. Like, oh God, okay. Stuff like that where you don't know, and someone else does. And he's like,
Yeah.
okay, pigs, they're not afraid of you. You can't rope a pig. I tried. You can't rope a pig.
Dang.
Well, you can rope a pig. I roped a pig. You can rope a pig and you can keep the pig from moving, but you can't move the pig. You can just keep them stationary. Okay, so just so you know, but that is super useful. Having people you can ask questions. I'm always open to DMs or whatever, and and not being afraid to do that. I mean, no one who does this kind of thing cares to. I say that most people who do this don't care to tell you, yeah, okay, do this, don't do this. Here's what I do. Try this first. I don't know. And so that's your biggest resource is
Yeah.
number one, doing it yourself, but also having people to ask questions. Is this normal? Should this be happening? Whatever. I think that's your best path.
So, um, where can people ask you questions and follow you on Twitter? And is that the only place that you're active?
Yeah, it's the only place. Yeah, that's it.
You are. Oh my gosh, I failed. I don't have it hooked up or pulled up.
It's it's at Watchman underscore motto Motto.
Okay. Gotcha. I will have a link for that in the show notes. If you got a couple minutes after, I'd love to ask you a couple more questions if that's cool. But if you got to
No
go, that's fine.
problem.
All
I don't
right.
have to.
Well, I appreciate your time and talking with me tonight, and appreciate everybody listening. And yeah, catch you next time.
Hey, thank you. It was great.
Fantastic interview. You can tell Matthew's very mindful about how he goes about things, being careful with his decisions, and probably makes fewer mistakes that way. But at the same time, he's out there pushing hard to get stuff done. Thanks for watching, everyone. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and most importantly, share the video. Check out our website, FarmHopLife.com. You can sign up for our email list or Telegram channel there to be notified when new videos, interviews, and podcasts are available. Send me a message at farmhoplife.com/contact or email me anytime, matt@farmhoplife.com. It all ends up in the same spot. I'm always looking for new people to interview. If you'd like to come on to talk about homesteading, farming, food security, homeschooling, regenerative agriculture, alternative building methods, or anything else, pitch it to me. farmhoplife.com/guest. Go feed yourself.